Hey everybody, welcome into another edition of Backseat Drivers. I have Jonathan Merryman and Jessie Punch. We're done with Indy. We now can say that the final 16 going into the NASCAR Playoffs is locked in. The final two spots, Clint Bowyer, Ryan Newman.
Yeah, I mean, not really what I thought was going to happen in Indianapolis. I figured we'd have a little bit of attrition.
Train wreck.
Yeah, I mean, but Jimmie was fast, and he looked like he could maybe stay out, and then stage 2 happened, and, you know, the caution late kind of put him back, and he was still in the same hole he was in when he entered into the race. So that point, he was going to have to win the race, and then when he wrecked out, just the air was just really sucked out of everybody, I felt like, who wanted to see him make it.
Yeah, Chase and 8 will have to wait.
Well, and once Suarez had that early incident and that kind of set him back a little bit, that's when we all knew things were going to get interesting. And like you, I didn't know that I had my money on Newman when it came to making the playoffs, but here he is and should make things pretty fun.
Yeah.
So this is the first time in postseason NASCAR in 15 years that Jimmie Johnson will not be going after a title. I'm shocked. I don't know if I completely expected him to get in after Indy. I knew that it was going to be a toss-up, but I think, like you said, when it actually happened and you knew there was no chance, it was just the air was just taken out of the whole place.
Yeah, I mean, it is disappointing. I think in the long run, I think it's not necessarily a good thing that it happened, but if there's one thing that's going to refocus that 48 team, yeah, I think it's going to be this. And look, the move to Cliff Daniels happened late. That was at Watkins Glen. And that team didn't really skip a beat. I was like, is this the right time to do this before the playoffs? He wasn't running any better before Cliff Daniels came on, and once Cliff came on as a crew chief, I mean, the team has just moved in a positive direction. The cars have become faster.
Just a little too late as far as playoffs are concerned.
And you can tell on the radio that Cliff really has a handle on that team. Now, I think what the goal is win number 84, 85, 86, however many they can get done. I think one is the goal for the rest of the year, and then next year hit the ground running. So.
Well, and you make such a good point with that because so many people love to just focus on the past. 7-time champion, he didn't make the playoffs. But it's just like you said, the 48 team is on their third crew chief since last season. And any other team, any other driver besides Jimmie Johnson would probably have a much larger learning curve with a crew chief. But given his experience, he is where he's at. But also, we can't deny the competitiveness of the playoffs and the playoff system that we have now. Just because he didn't make it doesn't mean he's not good, but it just goes to show just how competitive this playoff system is.
And look, you also talk about, oh man, he didn't make the playoffs, but you know, if we take the season as a whole and how the 48 team has performed, not just recent history with Cliff Daniels, if you take the season as a whole, what's Jimmie going to do when he gets in the playoffs? An early exit what's the difference in, you know, and I know there is a difference in making the playoffs and then having an early exit, but if you can't go in there and make an impact, and odds are Tony Stewart 2011 wasn't going to happen for Jimmie Johnson this year if he got in and come in and win 5 out of 10 races. So in the long run, big picture, does it affect, you know, what Homestead looks like? No.
Well, he's already tweeted bright first thing this morning that he's at Hendrick Motorsports, so back at it is what he said as the caption. So I don't think it'll be long before Jimmie Johnson wins again. I think it may take some of the pressure off and allow them to really come into their own. So we'll see. All right, let's get into the playoffs. Let's start with the round of 16. That's Vegas, Richmond, and then the Charlotte Roval. So who does this benefit, these three tracks, and who do we think makes it past the round of 16?
At the surface, I know we talk about him a lot as of late. Denny Hamlin. Anytime you see Richmond on the schedule, he can go out there. He can get a win. It's
home track.
It's a short track. It's a home track. Him and Gabe Hart, you know, kind of back to their short track roots. So round one, I mean, as if there was any question, he's got 4 wins this year, but I think Denny Hamlin is favored in that round for sure.
I see where you're coming from. I think, personally, the favor here is Martin Truex Jr. He also has 4 wins this season. 2 of them are on short tracks. One's on a 1.5 miles, and one's on a road course. And I know everything wins, you know, don't always translate. But in my opinion, I think that given this first round, the confidence that everyone has coming into it and where he's seated coming into it, I think he's going to be pretty strong.
I think the bigger conversation is who needs to be on their P's and Q's, right? Clint Bowyer's in that. Right. Ryan Newman is in that.
Yep. So are you looking at those guys that the 3 tracks are going to hurt them?
Not necessarily. I mean, because I think anything can happen on any given weekend, right? And if you look at maybe the back 8 positions in this playoff field, you know, have you really seen the consistency as of late from Boyer, Newman, Almirola? Blaney's been fast.
Yep.
Eric Jones, he showed a little bit of speed, but I mean, still, these guys that don't have these playoff points built up don't have a cushion. They can't afford for anything to go wrong, unlike Kyle Busch, who's got a huge playoff points buffer.
Yeah. So you're looking towards the bottom half having to point their way in. You don't think any of them can shock the system and get a win?
I mean, I think if you look at the equipment that Clint Boyer's in and you look at his history, can he go out and win a race? Yes. Is the team there right now? No. I think Ryan Blaney can go get a win. He hasn't won this year. I think William Byron can go
first
get
winner of the Roval.
Yeah, I think William Byron can go get a win. He hasn't won this year. Almirola, can he go out and get a win? I mean, I don't know. The consistency hasn't been there as of late, but, you know.
Well, and that's what I wanted to touch on, because you said something earlier, too, about it being so inconsistent and consistency being the key when it comes to the playoffs. And it's really hard coming off of a race like we had at Indy where, I mean, how many of our playoff drivers in the top didn't even finish? Yeah. And it was such a wild race. Now, can we expect that to happen in the first round of the playoffs? I don't know. People are probably going to be racing a little bit smarter, but that's where consistency is key. And for someone like a Ryan Newman, it's shown that. He's consistently... It's consistency that's put him where he is now. And I think it's that consistency that's going to propel drivers forward. Because at this point, a win it's fine, but you got to keep yourself moving.
Newman had all that pressure in Indy and didn't even falter. I mean, he just knew what he had to get done. He knew that this is where I have to run and this is where I have to finish to get into the playoffs. And it was, I mean, steady as they go.
He's
Ryan
a machine, though. I mean, that's been Newman's MO his whole career. He doesn't get worked up too much. He doesn't get too down on himself. He knows what he has to do. He's very much, I mean, he's an engineer. He's a numbers guy.
Yep.
And business is business.
All right. Okay, let's move ahead to the round of 12. In that round, we have Dover, Talladega, and Kansas. You're looking at some Hendrick Chevy wins, possibly. I know that you like the 9 in the championship 4.
The 9, this round favors the 9. If Larson can keep himself clean, it favors Larson as well, those two guys. And then, obviously, you think about Kyle Busch can win anywhere. Martin Truex Jr. can win anywhere. Kevin Harvick's got about...
You guys haven't said Brad Keselowski yet either.
Penske cooled off a lot.
Or Joey Logano. Man, you win a championship.
Brad and Joey are in my 4. I do know that. I am confident in that. But I think it goes back to consistency. I don't know that we're going to see any big news from them coming out of these first 2 rounds, but they're going to consistently power their way through, I believe.
So who do these 3 tracks hurt? Talladega is always a wild card. Kansas and Dover, I mean, there's people that are good there every single race.
Here's where it gets hard. I think it's going to depend on what the picture looks like coming out of, the first 3 races of round 1. And if anybody gets themselves, I know everything resets, but say if you're a guy with no wins this year and you do make it through,
yep.
Everybody else's playoff points that they earned that carry over, that's when the points mountain starts getting really, really steep. So if you're a guy like Boyer, like Newman, like Blaney, like William Byron, and even like Chase and Alex Bowman, who, they have a couple of playoff points at reset, but when you look at Kyle Busch's number, it's really amounts to very little. I think that's where these guys have to be buttoned up. They can't really rely on a points cushion, so to speak. So I think that round's going to be very attrition based, and then you have Talladega in there, which
is going to be crazy.
Which is going to be absolutely nuts. So you got to make it through Dega, and then Kansas. You can talk hard numbers.
Yep.
Well, I'm with you going back to who it could benefit, and I actually am curious to see your side of it because I agree. I think Chase could be very strong this round, but I think a lot of that could be from wanting to prove himself. I don't feel like the outcome, he started on the pole at Dover, didn't get the win. He led a decent number of laps at Kansas, didn't get the win. I really feel like he's has the chance there, and he wants to prove himself, but does that add pressure? Does that add more pressure than to hurt him more than it helps them? I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I think he's been there before. I think one big factor that I don't think enough people talk about is the fact that he has Alan Gustafson on the pit box, and I say it all the time. He's the best crew chief in the garage that does not have a championship. I have no idea how he doesn't have a championship yet.
It's coming.
I think he'll get it with Chase. Mm-hmm. But my thing with the 9 car is if you take a look over the past 2 sets of playoffs that we've had, Chase has progressed himself.
Yeah.
Right?
He's barely missed the championship for the last 2 years.
The last 2 years, and it's all come down. Well, 1 year it came down to Martinsville, and we all know how that turned out. And then, but he had a chance at ISM, and he raced Denny a little bit too hard, and I think he used his stuff up, and Kenseth was able to get by him. He wasn't able to hold him off.
Yep.
And then last year, he was set. He was set to coast to Homestead, and I think it was Denny and Clint got together and ripped the whole right side off that car and changed everything. Harvick was able to sneak in there. So I think the next step for that team is to make it past ISM. And if you take a look at the way last year worked out, he won Dega earlier in the year, but he won Watkins Glen, and then he started to get hot. I don't see why that can't happen again.
All right, so you have the 9. Jesse, who do you have that you're kind of keeping an eye on for that round?
I had the 9 as well.
Okay. All right, well, we're agreeing. Shocker. All right, well, then we head to Martinsville, that short track, Texas, and ISM in Phoenix for the round of 8. Who does that favor? Because those are all over the place.
My eyes right here are locked in on Penske because things are going to get tight.
Logano at Martinsville?
It's going to be between Logano and Keselowski. They're both really good there. And look, Martin Truex Jr.'s got bad blood from that race last year, too. He wants to go out there.
They're sideways, and it's going to be Logano getting the win.
He may win the battle, but he ain't winning the damn war.
I don't think the 22 or the 2 car both make it to Homestead, and I think it's going to come down to Martinsville.
Okay.
We're in agreement today on a lot of things. Seems weird, but that's okay.
Check your pulse or your temperature.
I know, right? Like, you feeling okay?
You guys are finally right.
Yeah. I don't know. The only thing I will disagree with you, though, is that I do think that both Logano and Keselowski have an opportunity to make their way to Homestead. I agree with you, though, that this was the round that we're going to see one of these Penske guys kind of come out and assert themselves as the dominant of the Penske guys and probably kind of that third dominant driver at that point in the playoffs. But like I said earlier, I have both Logano and Keselowski in my Final Four. Now, whether that's a stupid decision because I don't agree with you and maybe I'm wrong, it might be. But we'll have to see what works out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
All right, well, the championship 4, I know that you guys gave your predictions earlier in the season, but we're going to do it again. Homestead, we know who runs well there. We know the usual suspects that everybody thinks is going to be in the championship 4, but let's do your 4. You want to start?
Sure.
Since you're always right?
Yeah. So I think the 9 makes it. I think people might roll their eyes when I say that, but honestly, I think the 9 makes it. I think, the next step in his championship progression is to make Homestead.
The championship, yeah.
I think Denny makes it. Denny was not in mine at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, he ate crow last week,
for
guys.
Sure.
It's okay.
Denny Hamlin's going to make it. I think that the 18 makes it. Where I'm hung up is between the 19 and the 4. That's where I'm hung up.
So you have no Penske.
No. Where have they been? Where have they been over the last 5 weeks?
It's been like 5 races.
That's a long time in racing. They only got 10 left.
Yeah, but I think they'd rather. I see. First of all, I think Logano performs extremely well under pressure. I think that 22 team can turn it on to where they have perfect races when they need to have perfect races.
So the incentive of the 15 playoff points guaranteed every round for winning the race.
He came in second.
Yeah, but what does that matter? He didn't. The goal is to get the full 15.
I understand what the goal is, but you got to go out there and beat Kyle Busch for it.
He's got to beat Kyle Busch for championship. He's going to have to.
I'm not saying that Joey goes back to back with championships. I'm not predicting that. Do I think that there's a Penske driver in the Champ 4? Yes.
I don't think so. You got 3 Joe Gibbs racing cars that are better than them right now.
To you today. All right, Jesse.
I agree with you, Alex.
Okay, yay!
I do think that there will be a Penske driver, like I said, in the championship 4. As confident as I am in Chase in that second round, I don't think I have him in my 4. I didn't earlier in the season, and I don't.
Do you have him knocking out after the round of 8?
I do have him out. I'm gonna have to go with the 18. I think he's strong. Like I said, I have both Penske guys. I have Logano and Keselowski, and then I have Harvick. I think if you want to talk about the last 5 weeks, he's been doing really well. And I think that he's shown that he has the consistency and the the professionalism, obviously, and level-headedness, kind of like you're talking about with Logano, that when the pressure's on, he knows how to handle it.
I don't even know if Harvick ever feels pressure.
Yeah, but
Right?
you're leaving the 11 out of it completely.
I am leaving the 11 out.
And the 19.
Completely. And the 19. Not that they haven't had incredibly impressive runs this season, but we are talking about the 4 top drivers in the field all season long.
Truex, Hamlin, Kyle Busch both have 4 wins this year. Nobody else has that.
But does wins make the champion? Because we're working in a
win a
playoff
race in every
system.
round,
If
Yeah.
you're going based off of that, then Kevin Harvick should have been the champ last year.
Kyle Busch had just as many wins as he did.
He also didn't win the championship.
Well, I
so
know,
if you're
but-
going based off just wins, this is 2 against 1. I love it.
Well, let's look as an example. I know we're not necessarily talking playoffs, but let's compare the Xfinity Series. Of the big 3 in the Xfinity Series this season, Tyler Reddick has the least number of wins by at least 2 behind Cole Custer
And didn't show up
and
at all
Christopher
last
Bell.
year until the championship.
But is our regular season champion and going into the playoffs with the most playoff points.
Yeah, but where does the 22 and the 2 stack up with the playoff points? Once you get to that last round, I mean, I think playoff points might put the last person, the 4th person in. So what if Kyle Busch doesn't win a race in that last round?
It's like saying, what if I don't blink today?
I'm just saying. There's a lot of scenarios there.
If I am a betting person, which I am not, but if I am a betting person,
And Logano won
my
in the round of
money
8.
on the table, if I had to pick one driver that I think can come out there and win it, my money's probably going to go on the 18.
Same.
Mine would be on the 11 right now. I think the 11 is the best car in the garage. And the 4 is not far behind. The 18 is
But we
Kyle
also-
Busch is not performing where Kyle Busch needs to perform. There's a reason that Kyle Busch is consistently irritated when he gets out of the race car and has been since he last won a race.
But is it because he's Kyle Busch and his standards are here and is not happy even when he does win the race?
I think Kyle
Yeah.
Busch sees that his teammate is one of the best teams in the garage right now. I think Kyle Busch thinks Kyle Busch is the best driver in the garage right now and has the same equipment that his teammate has, and Kyle Busch is mad that he is not getting the same results.
Okay, I'm not arguing with you, and I value your opinion.
She's not arguing with you. It's funny.
But how do you know?
You don't. This whole thing is
listen,
speculation.
listen.
This whole
The 4th or 5th
backseat driver. It's all in the title.
We're talking like 10 weeks out too,
The
y'all.
4th or 5th week, I probably had the 11 at least going to the round of 8 in the championship or in the playoffs. I think he's been the strongest car consistently in the garage. I think they've had some off weeks where they probably could have finished a little bit better, but I think that they've picked that back up. And the next week or the following week, they've been consistent and gotten the finish that they deserved. How do you know that the 11 is not having what the 2 had last year and just hitting that streak way too early?
Because the 2 car wasn't able to maintain it for the entire season. Denny Hamlin won the Daytona 500. He comes out, he wins Texas. Then he goes on, grabs 2 more wins, and running super well at Darlington. Ran pretty well in a backup car at Indianapolis. It's just not the same scenario for me.
Okay.
But I think you made a really good point, and that actually was a question that I was going to ask you in our kind of agreement, disagreement. You said that Kyle Busch is the best driver in the garage, but we're not talking
We're talking team.
team, excuse me. And we're not, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're not talking driver to driver. We're talking 18 team, 11 team. So you feel that the 11 team all around is stronger, even though Denny might be an inferior driver ability-wise currently in the season to Kyle
I think
Busch.
Denny now has what Kyle has and what Truex has, and that is a crew,
Total package, yeah.
a crew chief, and talent behind the wheel. Denny's
And
always
equipment.
had talent behind the wheel. I think what's been missing is the whole team package. I think if Gabe Hart told Denny to drive off of a cliff, Denny would mat the gas and drive off of a cliff.
And he should.
Because he trusts him, and
Right.
Gabe Hart is that good. I think that was the final piece, along with a couple of other things coming together, namely Denny Hamlin's confidence, all coming together. And I mean, it's just, for me, it's a no-lose situation for that 11 car. I mean, they are clicking on all 8 cylinders.
So he's your champ.
Denny Hamlin is my champion.
You're crowning him in 2019.
Yes.
Who are you crowning?
I'm crowning Kyle Busch, and I'll tell you why. For every single reason that you just gave why Denny's going to win this, that's why I think Kyle's going to win this. Because Kyle Busch knows where Denny's at. Kyle Busch knows the position that he's in. He sees Denny's confidence rising. He sees the team meshing. Now, I know there are so many other factors, there's strategy, there's so many things that go into this race. But Kyle Busch is the most headstrong driven person I've ever spoken to in my life. And I think that he will not leave that race happy or leave that track without finishing in front of Denny Hamlin.
So here's my question to you, because something I saw out of character from Kyle earlier in the year, Daytona 500, he didn't get out of line to try to make a move on the 11. He pushed the 11 to a win. Uncharacteristic of Kyle Busch, but I think he knew the bigger picture in what that team as a whole, Joe Gibbs Racing, needed with everything that happened.
It's also the first race of the year.
That's what I was going to say. How much
It's
did
a
we know about
Daytona
the aero?
500.
But how much did we know about the aero
It's
package?
not Homestead.
It's a Daytona 500.
Here's my question. We knew so little about the aero package at that point that what if he gets out of line and then they both fall back and third place wins it? Jones.
Well,
Or
Daytona
Logano.
500, they ran last year's package.
True.
So
you're right.
My thing is what if we reverse the roles? What if it's the 11 and the 18 battling at Homestead? Does Kyle keep that in the back of his head?
No.
It's Homestead.
It's a championship.
I know, I'm saying. But you'd make the move and you'd
100% I'm making
you'd
the
throw a
move.
bumper to Denny.
Teammate bets are off when you're in the Champ 4. Off. Like
What
there
if you wreck
is.
both of them?
I would much rather say that I went after it and then I did everything I could to try to get that checkered flag versus I willy-dilly didn't just let my teammate go.
I'm just saying, I think there's a lot there. I don't think Kyle will play as nice as he played in Daytona with Denny if
No,
they're
that's
if
I
they're
agree
still in
with
the
you.
championship round. But I mean, I think it's healthy to have a team rivalry too, and it's definitely the beginning of the year we thought it was going to be 18-19, but now it's looking like it's 11, and who else wants to show up right now?
All right. Well, we'll see. There is a lot of season left. We're going to crown a champion in November at Miami, and we're also going to crown a People's Champ in Nashville, Tennessee this year. We're going to have the most popular driver be awarded. It's presented by Hooters this year. The polls have officially opened for the 2019 Most Popular Driver Award, presented by Hooters from September 4th at noon through Wednesday, December 4th at noon. Fans can cast a vote for a single driver once per day at NASCAR.com/most popular driver or the NASCAR mobile app. Votes shared on Twitter and Facebook count as double. This year's Most Popular Driver Award recipient will be announced during the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series award ceremony in Nashville on Thursday, December 5th. This is Jonathan Merryman's dream come true.
Well, I just found out something I'm pretty bummed about. I'm not eligible to be the most popular driver this year. It's a shame.
I don't think you have to worry. Backseat Drivers, I don't think, can win Most Popular Driver.
Technically, we're drivers.
But it's presented by Hooters Chicken Wings.
Yeah, I mean, that's a dream come true for me to always try to get some sort of affiliation with a
It
chicken
really
wing
is.
place and
Really
have it
is.
be Hooters. It's fan. This is one of the best days of my life.
So I think we have some idea who may win this. It's been an Elliott or Earnhardt for the last, 30
Ever.
years? So what is the prestige of this award as far as you're concerned in the sport?
Oh, I think it's everything, especially in a sport that is so sponsor driven. Likability means everything.
Everything,
And it goes back to what you said, the drivers that typically get it, they've pretty much proved themselves, even if they're not necessarily the number one on the track.
Yep.
It's important. It's a huge deal. And it means a lot in the field as well. I think the other drivers in the garage definitely pay attention to who the fans like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it has a lot of pull. I mean,
You think you would be the people's champ?
no, not if I was up against anybody else. Not if you knew me. No, but I mean, it has a lot of pull, and it means a lot. I mean, this whole sport revolves around the fan, right? And it's awesome that we put so much emphasis on who do the fans love, and it's cool for the drivers to know that. And luckily for us, last year we had a guy that was able to compete and looked like he was going to be running for a title, win it. It's not. It is based on performance as well. I don't think people would
I
win
agree.
this if they finished in the back every single week. So, you got to be up on the wheel to win this award too.
This is always really fun too, because as much as we talk about like competition on the track and legitimate competition within teams, this is where the fun competition comes out, because you start to see
Drivers
the
like
drivers
going on social media about this one.
exactly, and they
Who
start their hashtags.
Who do you think the most
and all
popular
that.
backseat driver is? Maybe we could start our own poll.
We should.
There we go.
Most popular backseat driver.
Also presented by Hooters.
Yeah, for sure.
Merriman,
Winner
fueled
get-
by chicken wings.
Winner gets wings.
His golden locks and chicken wings. That's all you need over here. All right, well, we're opening up the playoffs. It's hard to believe we're saying that. We're getting to the nitty-gritty part of the season, and we're just now heating up. It's the opening race of the round of 16 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway coming up Sunday, 7 p.m. on NBCSN. Backseat Drivers will hold it down for you guys, and we'll see you right back here next week.